This is Will with Take That News, and today I am streaming for the first time. Let's hear this.
David. Hey, Will, we just found this out a few months ago from the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, as you mentioned, James Comer of Kentucky. This comes hours after former Attorney General Bill Barr testifies to Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell. Let's read this statement from Comer.
I hope so.
It says officials with the Department of Justice have informed us that the department will begin to provide Epstein-related records to the House Oversight Committee this week on Friday. There are many records in DOJ's custody. It will take the department time to produce all the records and ensure the identification of victims and any child sexual abuse material.
I don't think they're going to find anything.
Poisoned with this, and anything that's produced publicly will be under a huge amount of scrutiny and distrust. And people will say,
I don't think that they are going to find anything in the Epstein files because it was not meant to be found. The entire Epstein situation that's going on is literally due to cover up after cover up after cover up. It's a huge cover up. That's all there is to see. No, it's not in America's best interest for the Epstein files to be released based off of the reaction that we get from both sides. I think that it's more of a game of clicks and views, and knowing that the media is going to outrage over this issue until there is a level of closure. There is no closure because there has been no moves to, outside of what the Trump administration has done, to essentially push this under the bridge, I guess I'd say. So, and the thing is, it was the same way during the last administration. I think this Epstein issue is a lot bigger than the narratives that the media is putting out there. Their whole goal is to essentially say that Trump is the main actor in not releasing the information behind Epstein, but in reality, that's not the truth. I think there's many factors as to why Donald Trump doesn't want to release the Epstein files. Do I think he's complicit in it? Absolutely, but I think a lot of people are on both sides, and I think it's similar to the 2008 financial crash situation where the government had to bail out a lot of companies because they were abusing a system they were allowed to profit in, essentially, right? So very many people that there were people involved that caused a crash at every level. Small people, big corporations, etc. So when it comes to the Epstein files, I see it as the same thing. You've got many people that are involved in these kinds of things, and the government, it seems as though they're doing what they can to cover it up. But, obviously I don't have all the answers, but that would be my assumption.
I don't think everybody was involved with the weird stuff, but I think that a good amount of people were. That's what I would assume.
Yeah, I do agree with Asmund Gold here. I think that there were a lot of people that were involved. I don't think everybody was involved. I don't think everybody knew. I don't think everybody was in the circle. I think the government is a lot more complex than that, this all being a one big system where everybody knew what was going on. I think that there's definitely more to the story, though. Another thing I don't entirely believe is that the narrative of Epstein simply being a actor in blackmail, essentially, is the full length of what Epstein was capable of. I think that Epstein was doing far more nefarious things and had a far more nefarious role than what the popular narrative is. And the reason I say that is because, the government is doing their best to cover this up, right? But if they're covering up for the sake of protecting people involved in this scandal that involves, minors, then I would assume that they would want that story to be the story that doesn't get out, that's hidden. Because if that story were believed to be true by other nations, I think it would tarnish the image of the United States in a way that would be very hard to repair. It's a lot deeper than we could ever imagine, and we probably won't realize the weight of it until 50 years from now.
I have not seen Putin prepared to give up anything material yet. I haven't seen him agree to anything significant that would materially change how Zelensky will have to think about the risk associated with coming to an agreement with Putin. I hope I'm wrong.
And I'd say that's the issue when it comes to Putin and this conflict in general. It's a battle of egos just as much as it's a battle of real valuable resources, I think Putin is not one to pretty much just settle and give up without a fight, obviously. Putin knows that he commands one of the most powerful armies in the world, and to lose to Ukraine, to give up and essentially split the difference when it comes to Ukraine, I don't think is his ultimate goal. I think he wants a total takeover of that region, and he wants full control, because that is, essentially what would be in what he believes is the best interest of the Russian economy. So now I'm not gonna act like I know everything about Putin and Putin's history and such, but from what I do know about Putin, he doesn't seem like the type to just he's a very smart guy, right? And he knows how to get what he wants. And if he was willing to settle and split the difference, then I think he would have done that by now, So I think that with Putin, it's going to be a lot more complex an issue to solve. I think originally when everything started, there was a lot of rumors with Trump and Putin essentially being in collusion in a sense, like how the Russians tried to sway the election in his favor. I assumed that Trump was going to come in and immediately be on Putin's side, immediately, want to side with Putin. And as you can see from what he's been doing, he's been as conflict avoidant as possible. He's tried to avoid the conflict as much as possible. He's tried not to cause it to escalate. So I can give Trump his props in that realm, where he is working with Zelensky and Putin to come to an agreement and a solution. One thing with Biden is I don't ever recall anyone in the Biden administration speaking directly with Putin and speaking, I know he spoke directly with Zelensky a lot, but I think it's important as a leader that you are able to see both sides of the issue and come to a solution with both sides. The thing is, there is a solution there, right? That both Zelensky and Putin can agree to. There has to be, because the escalations only get more costlier over time. So what the solution will be, I think the people are hoping that the solution will be defined within a short span of time and with the least amount of consequences. But the reality is it's such a complex issue and there's no concrete answers yet. It's probably going to drag on. And I would assume if it doesn't end by this term, then it will drag on until the next term. So Trump expecting to have a meeting with Zelensky and Putin together is laughable, in my opinion. I think the last time that those two tried to meet, they both tried to kill each other. So definitely doubt that's going to happen. Definitely doubt a meeting's going to happen. It would be dope, if they were to meet and, kind of hug it out, come to a conclusion like adults. I think it's crazy that, we live in such a cognitive dissonant world where everybody just seems to have so many issues with the progress of humanity, right? Yet our solution is to create more conflict, is to sell and monetize more conflict versus actually focusing on solutions. Because what's interesting to me is, why does the conflict get more attention than the actual solution? In 2025, the conflict gets more attention than the solutions. We're not bringing together our best, sharpest people to talk about solutions. We're bringing our sharpest people to the forefront of the internet, in front of millions of people, to talk about the conflict. And it's, my breakdown, my assumption from all of this is that what's happening is people are being pretty much led astray. Like, I think there's a lot of people who don't really think deeply about things and are easily manipulated into pretty much believing whatever they're told. And that becomes an issue because now the narrative of how people feel can be manufactured based off of somebody who knows how to manipulate those people. So it's an interesting world we live in, very, very, very difficult to navigate. But Zelensky and Putin coming together and having a meeting, I mean, I don't see why these two would even think that's a good idea themselves. Because how does, there's no, what is Putin gonna say to Zelensky? I'm sorry for pretty much destroying majority of your country in order to obtain it, and now we need to come together and figure out how to stop this massacre from happening, stop all the bloodshed, all of the lives that have been lost. It's not gonna be an easy conversation. It's not like Putin has a plan that Zelensky is going to work with. I mean, I'd assume they both would have a plan together if this meeting were really a focal point in the direction of this war. But I don't think it's going to be that. I think the meeting isn't going to happen. I think that the war is going to go on. And I think the thing with Zelensky is what he is looking to gain is far greater than what he's lost. With Putin, he's got far more to lose, but he really can't lose, I don't think that he can lose this because he's going to have the resources to take on whatever needs to happen. Unless it goes nuclear, then nobody wins, But it's these two are not going to come together. Many of the people who think others are easily manipulated are easily manipulated themselves, and that I have to agree with you. I definitely agree with you on that one. I think that most people don't realize how easily they're manipulated. I think it's human nature to be manipulated because it's just the way our brains are wired, We're so tied to certain things that it's like essentially we have to manipulate ourselves to do certain things, right? To be productive or to do things that we just don't naturally feel. So it's kind of human nature to be manipulated, but the way society is ran is manipulation has become a currency, and because of that, there's a lot less humanity in where the world is at, in my opinion. I think that it still exists, but I think that the culture is kind of based on manipulation just being the go-to thing. And then I think a lot of these issues that are present are kind of over exaggerated due to the manipulation. I think that what is really important a lot of the time is under the rug versus what is put out there is consistently causes more damage than good, is what I'd say. And I think culture on every level has been kind of damaged due to the kind of ruleless manipulation that we've been subjected to as humans.
Stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners. We will do our best for this. I think we show that we are strong people, and
I will say the difference between Biden Zelensky and Trump Zelensky is, I think during the Biden administration, Zelensky was pushing Biden as much as he could. We need this funding for this war. He was going on the internet and he was pretty much like saying, hey, you guys need to support us because we are the underdogs. And Biden was going for it. I think with Trump, it's a much different dynamic because Zelensky obviously knows that he doesn't hold the same leverage with Trump. Prior to Trump winning, when Zelensky started to go on the media and say how much of a fan he was of Trump and, all of those things, it was him essentially playing the card that he's playing now, which is to pretty much rely on Trump to solve this conflict, and I think that's taken a lot of stress off of him because Trump does want to mediate this in the best way. But I think Zelensky's ambitions for Ukraine ever being the same that it was prior to this war is pretty much a dead dream at this point. And I have to give credit to where it's due. I think that Trump's handling of it, he didn't start the war. I think that he's handling it in the best way he can. I don't see it ending soon, but I think that there is hope there. And I think that there is definitely power in kind of holding a strong grasp on the country and what we do and how we support. Because we definitely don't want to have boots on the ground. Trump is a typical businessman. If he sees benefits to close eyes on kidnapped Ukrainian children or bombing cities or anything else, Trump will choose money. Listen, I definitely agree. I think that Trump is a capitalist at heart. I think if he knows he can profit off of the war, as long as it goes on, he will. I know he's now selling weapons to Ukraine instead of just, taking money out of the government to give to them, which, I don't think is such a bad thing. But I do, it's profiting off war is a bad thing. That's a bad statement to make. I don't know. It's such a complex issue. If you're for example, imagine you're the president, right? And you have to decide what you're going to do in this situation. Like, what would you do? Because there's going back to, the strong man and, hey, it's my way or the highway, or do you try and find a mediation to the conflict? While at the same time looking out for the best interests of the economy of the country you're in, and that's the thing. Where I say there's a lot, and earlier in the stream I was saying there's a lot of manipulation in media. I think the media wants to paint Trump out as a horrible person, right? Which is not hard to believe. He's done things that people don't agree with, but everybody has, right? Does Trump have the best interests of the country? That's what the real issue is, and I don't know that necessarily. Obviously, if your goals are money motivated, then that's selfish in nature. But when you're talking about the global economy, you know, America has been number one for a very long time, and it's important. Let me see. Trump is a typical businessman. Yeah. Maybe in Denmark, U.S. has eyes on Greenland. On the topic, how easily people are manipulated. Here's the U.S. admit. Oh, Ukraine. Okay, I'm going to check that article out in a little bit. But we already have a legal American military bases here. America is already semi-occupying the country in practice. Yeah, and that's the thing. That's where it's like these issues are they're so much deeper and complex than what we're being led to believe, because what's happening behind the scenes is not what's getting the clicks and the attention. It's crazy that we live in a time where you would think, because of the advancements in technology and education and all of the things that we have, that we would be moving towards a more peaceful time. We would be moving towards less genocide, you know, less divisive things. But it seems the more we get connected to technology, and the less we get kind of connected and understanding of each other's plight, I think the more disruptive the world becomes it allows for more justifications for leaders to do horrible things like genocide, because, you know, when you're so disconnected, when there's so much hate, you just don't really see the other person. You don't really understand their struggle, and it's very sad.